This week, we huck desserts into each other's faces, get a bad case of emphysema as we establish our industries. And you know what? Nothing else matters this week because we have Isaac freaking Vega on. Join us as we have a merry old time on this exciting episode of Rolling Doubles Podcast. Welcome to Rolling Doubles, a podcast about two board game enthusiasts who have never met and rolled the dice on friendship. I'm Jacob. Sparky's the only dog I've ever really loved. Russell.
And I'm excited, and I just can't hide it.
See, I told you we should do a musical episode. We have it in us. We can totally do it.
I know, right? There we go.
I know.
Musical episode starting next week.
Sorry, next week, not this week, because this week we have a very special guest. A guest that we are honored to have, Mr. Isaac Vega himself. Isaac, we are so happy that you're with us. How are you doing this evening?
I am doing wonderful, gentlemen. Thank you for having me. I appreciate being on.
Yeah, it's just, it's fun to talk to people in the industry, and they're putting out work that they're passionate about. So we'll talk about the games that you're working on and do that all later. But first, I want to talk about the games that we've been playing. And I think it would be fun to kind of hear from games that you're playing that aren't your own game. So, but let's just start with a game from you, Ryan. What games have you been playing lately?
Yeah, I want to talk about a game from Roxley called Brass Lancashire. This is a game from Martin Wallace. This is actually a very, very old game that just got updated by Roxley. Roxley being games from like Santorini, Steampunk Rally. And I played it this past weekend. It's phenomenal. The upgraded visuals, the illustration that this game has made in this 2018 version is superb. And the gameplay, I think, as well. I haven't played the old version, but the game plays so well. Basically, you're tycoons from like the 1770s, and what you're trying to do is you're basically building all these like coal and iron plants and cotton, and you're trying to sell them to the market, and you're getting all these types of money, which again, they're having these clay tokens, or no, the clay. Why am I having a complete blank?
They're like clay. Like a poker chip type things, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's such a wonderful game. There's like 5 different actions you can take. There's like 2 phases. Everyone has a hand of cards. What you can play is basically from that cards. There's other actions that you can take, such as like taking out a loan, selling the cotton plants that you send out there, and building the different coal and mine stuff. Yeah, it's such a great game. It's like rank 33 on like the best board games on BGG. Please check it out. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Brass Lancashire. Lancashire? Lancashire.
Lancashire? I don't know. Do you have history with other train games, or is this one of the first train games you've played?
No, I mean, like, what, Ticket to Ride? Is that a train game?
Yeah, that's a train game.
Yeah. I mean, I don't play too many of them, but Brass is better. I like it more. I definitely would play Brass.
Okay, now is this the original remake, or is this like the new version that they made with kind of the same principles?
There's 2 versions. There's Lancashire and then there's Birmingham. Lancashire is, I think, a little bit more of a streamline, but stays true to the original. Birmingham is like that updated, like, this is now, there's a lot more to it. So, I traded for a copy. I really want to get back onto the table. There's a lot here. There was a lot of really great, interesting decisions to be made in that game, and phenomenal game. Phenomenal.
Does the version you got, was it the Kickstarter version, or does the base version come with those like clay tokens?
Just Deluxe, I think, is out there in the wild right now. So.
I need it. I know. I was so close to backing it. Did you have any history, Isaac, with train games or this game at all?
Really, I have played Brass, but it's been so long I could not even tell you how the rules functioned. And I know I've played way more train games. Like, when I first started getting into board gaming, I had my 2 friends, Martha and Lucas, and they were obsessed with most Euros you can possibly ever think of back that existed 5 years ago. And a lot of them had to do with trains. So I'm sure I played a lot of train games. Of course, I played Ticket to Ride as well. But yeah, I can't really recall too many of them. There's been so many games that I've played at this point, and I have a terrible memory. It's absolutely terrible memory, unfortunately. And so
when did you get into the hobby?
I got into the hobby about 8 years ago. Now,
Okay.
eight and a half, maybe almost 9. Yeah.
What's the first game that stood out to you that like made you realize how great this hobby is?
So the first 2 games, these are the 2 that will always stick out in my mind the most, would be Puerto Rico and Dominion. Because that was just when Dominion was like getting like super hot, and Puerto Rico had been around for a while, I'm sure. And man, like it just blew my mind. Like all I had known about board games was Monopoly, Monopoly and Sorry, and those games that nobody ever wanted to play with me or finish in my family. So like to sit down and play with people that were really passionate about this hobby and also see what was possible from it. Those 2 games really stuck out in my mind as just like, wow, this is so interesting. I love these mechanics. And you guys can even see reflections of some of those mechanics in my first game, City Remnants.
Yeah.
Ooh, like what? I'm going to put you on the spot. Examples of that.
For sure. A lot of the action selection, types of mechanics and things like just the Euro-based mechanics. A lot of it is inspiration from Puerto Rico. And Dominion's obviously a deck builder, and you're building the gangs as your deck in City of Remnants as well. So there was definitely inspiration from those 2 games. And that's why they'll always stick out in my memory the most, because they were just mechanics that I was in love with and I wanted to see meld together.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I love train games. I think my favorite one right now is Railways of the World. It's very easy to get into. It's very accessible, like I was saying, but it's a lot of fun, and I've had a hard time finding a game that kind of competes with that. I'm not a fan of Ticket to Ride. I've tried it once, and it was like 2008, so I probably should try it again. But it's been years since I've touched that. But I love Railways. Is that a game that either of you have played at all?
No,
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, so this is an early Eagle Griffin game, I believe, and it's just giant map, and you're building train routes to go from city to city, and you're delivering goods. It's great. I highly recommend it. But with Brass, I've wanted to check that one out for a while. So if I can get my hands on a deluxe edition, I might do it. Are they available for sale, or is there just like the retail version now?
It's expensive. It's really expensive. I would say that if you can find just a regular retail copy, go for it. Even still, I mean, the upgraded components are awesome, but I wanted to say too that the people who did the design and I think illustration is a group called Mr. Cuddington. It's a husband-wife combo, and so they actually did the artwork for the Grimm's Forest.
Ooh.
Oh.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. That's so striking. Like, it has this great dark tone to it, but it's still striking. I didn't know that. That's cool.
If you Google them, you can look at their profile or their portfolio, and they have a lot of great stuff under their portfolio. I'm absolutely in love with this really dark intensity of illustration and design. It works really well. It's awesome. It's really great. Again, that's Brass Lancashire by Martin Wallace, published by Roxley.
I love what Roxy does. That's awesome. One game I've been playing lately a couple times so far is My Little Scythe. Now, I'm a huge Scythe fan. Like, backed it, and I have all the crap for it. Like, I've introduced it to so many of my friends, and they've all really enjoyed it. It's probably my top 3 most played games in my collection, and that says a lot, because I'm one who forces a lot of my games on my friends, so it's not like they get to play the same game all the time. They get new fun games, and I force it on them because I'm a good friend. But with Scythe, I've wanted to play this game with my kids for so long. So I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. This game is a simplified version, a family edition of Scythe, and you've seen it out and about. It's been pretty hot lately, but what they've done is they've done a great job at abstracting this game, and it's not that it's like dumbed down at all. It's just simplified, and the way they simplified it was just so unique and so fresh. So it was designed by Hobie Chow and Vienna Chow, and that is a father-daughter team. It originated as a print and play game that the father made called what's it called? My Little Pony.
Yeah, My Little Pony. Yeah, it was definitely a My Little Pony thing, and they demoed it to Jamie, and Jamie was like, "This is awesome," and themed it to Scythe. Yeah, so that's really cool.
Yeah, and that's just so smart. And I love the dedication that this father has to bring his hobby or his passions to his kids. And it's like it makes me contemplate my role as a father and how terrible I'm at it. Because I'm not that. I'm an okay father. I'm gonna back myself up. I'm okay. At best. No, and so I was able to bring this game out to first some friends. So first time I played, it was with a bunch of like 25 to 30-year-olds, and there's 5 of us, and 2 of the people said, "This is more my pace of game." And they've played Scythe before, and they really liked it. But this was just it's just fun. Like, it was super light. We could kind of just hang out and play Scythe and just kind of have, not the exact same experience, but enough of the experience where it's a very fun, engaging time doing this. And it's just fun how they abstracted it in ways that instead of fighting each other with mechs, you're throwing pies at each other. It's really cute. Instead of gaining popularity, you're building friendship. So there's ways to get resources out on the board. And if you put it in spaces where there are other players, you go up on your friendship meter. And it's just charming. I think that's the best word for it. It is a charming game. And so I bring this out with my 6-year-old a couple days later, and he friggin' loves it. Like, he just fell in love with this game. He was interested. He picked up the rules pretty easily. I took out a couple of kind of the bigger things that have a lot of text on them, because he's just entering first grade. So there's a few aspects of it that are probably a bit over his head, but he picked it up super fast. He could look at the icons and understand what they meant. And he won, but he was still upset because he wasn't able to deliver apples to Castle Everfree, which is in the middle of the board. But it's just so ridiculous because, like, he still won the game, but he was bummed that he wasn't able to do that. So there are different winning conditions, or not winning conditions, but ways to put your trophies out on the board. And the first person to 4 of their trophies out wins. And it's the same things in Scythe, where instead of the popularity, like I said, it's the heart, the friendship track. So you get 8 hearts there. If your pie track gets up to 8, if you do quests, if you win a pie fight, things like that. If you deliver apples or gems to Castle Everfree, and there's ways to do that. It's just a fun, charming game. Now, with both of you, is there a history with Scythe at all? Is this a game that you've played?
So I'm one of these late to the game people that has not played Scythe yet. And I have really wanted to. Like, it's really dumb that I haven't, but I really wanted to, because it's just like I was automatically attracted to Scythe just based on the cover, based on the art that they were able to utilize for the game, and the world was just so interesting. So the fact that I haven't played it yet is very disappointing, but I was going to ask you, like, now that you've played both, which would you suggest that I play first?
Good question.
Good question. Okay, it depends on the experience that you want. Do you want a more like you're just playing a game with friends and you're focused on the game? It's not really for a social gaming session. It's more for like, oh, let's play this deeper strategy game. Or do you just want kind of a hangout, have fun, eat some food, and chat while you play a game? It depends what you want from the experience, honestly. Okay. Now, people are saying that, like, with My Little Scythe, it's a childish version. Why would you play that? But I don't know. I don't really understand that criticism. Yes, it's a family game, but you can enjoy family games with adults. And so it's just a fantastic game. I think it'd be fun to get to play Scythe first and then play this second to kind of see how they abstracted it down. I think there's a lot of clever choices that Hobie made to do that. And so I think, honestly, play both in the same day. That's my answer.
Wow.
Both. I'm also a huge fanboy
Will
of Scythe.
do then.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's two things that come to mind. One, this reminds me, and this is coincidental, but it reminds me a lot of Stuffed Fables.
Like the art style, or what aspects of it?
I think a lot, not just art style. I think Stuffed Fables is a little bit more, just kind of more nighttimey and dark. Not dark in a bad way, but just kind of, My Little
It's
Scythe
dreams.
is definitely bright. They're kind of contrasting, but as far as like a game that can appeal to both the younger audience and an audience of our age, of a hobbyist, 18 plus, I don't know. It seems like they definitely fall into that same category, right?
That's true. Like this and Mice and Mystics, a bunch of the hobby games are like this as well. I think that's a great point. Actually, after playing this, I kind of wanted to introduce my son to Stuffed Fables. I think he would love it. And I actually don't know a lot about it. I just know that people are digging it. Is there a lot of reading on the kids side of that? You might be able to
No,
answer
I
that,
mean
Isaac.
you can just have one reader throughout the entire thing if you want.
Okay.
It's not difficult at all to introduce to children. And in fact, like I mean, the designer Jerry has always like focused a lot on his games to make sure that they are accessible to kids, but also engaging for adults. And I think he hit it out of the park with Stuffed Fables. Like it's just a slam dunk with engagement as for families. Like I definitely suggest trying it out, or at least looking at a review and seeing if it's right for you.
His next game looks amazing. Comanauts, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Oh my
Comanauts.
gosh. That one, just look at that. It's the same system, right?
It's
Jerry Hawthorne, is that his name?
It's not exactly the same system, but it's very, very close. Like there are some modifications. There's some things to make it a little bit more engaging. It's more for an adult audience. So it's definitely something that is like the part 2 to kind of continuing on this story series that he's working on.
Cool.
That's so cool. Oh man. Okay, yeah. And so that's My Little Scythe. Highly recommend it. That was published by Stonemaier Games. I have just a big crush on that publisher. I don't know anything he does. And Seam. Okay, yes, it's kind of equal there. But with Stonemaier, I think it was just early on. Euphoria was the first game I got of his, and I think it's easy to see the passion that Jamie puts into his games and the games that he produces, and it just comes through it. Are they perfect games? No, of course not. But it's a publisher I can trust. And actually, to be honest, I'm going to toot your horn over there, Isaac. Same thing with Plaid Hat. One of the first games I got when I got into the hobby, which was in like 2012, was Summoner Wars. And it's just kind of, I don't know, everything that Plaid Hat was pushing out. So there were actually 3 companies that I was obsessed with when I first got into the hobby. It was Fantasy Flight, because they're amazing. Plaid Hat. Oh, who's the third one back then? Oh, we've talked about this. Flying Frog. Do you remember Flying Frog? I think we've talked about that a tiny bit. Yeah.
Vaguely, I think so.
Vaguely.
I don't know.
I haven't touched a Flying Frog game in like 5+ years, but those 3. But it's just fun to see just the passion put into games. And yeah, an early game was Dungeon Run from Plaid Hat. That just had such great stories behind it. I'm starting to digress. Anyway, My Little Scythe by Stonemaier Games. Highly recommend it.
Very, very quickly for the both of you.
Yeah.
If you could My Little any game, very quickly, what comes to mind?
Zaya.
Nice. My Little Zaya Legends of a Drift System.
That's
actually
Zaya,
cool. That's actually a really
cool.
cool idea. That's a really cool idea. What about you, Isaac?
Oh man, My Little Twilight Imperium.
Oh, that's such a good idea.
I'm sure it's probably already in the works or something.
I'm sure it's there.
Actually, wow, that's all coming together relatively fast now in my head. I mean, think of all the different like cat plushies that you could come out for that.
But they're all like kittens and baby turtles.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. It works.
It works. A kitten with an eye patch.
That's fantastic.
That's such a
that
good
would be
idea.
really funny if My Little Scythe started this entire trend of just like these giant games, like just getting My Little versions of them.
Good. Think about it. Okay, well, here's the thing. It's happened with other games, right? Carcassonne has a kids family, a kids version. Stone Age does. Other ones that I can't think of off the top of my head. So it's a thing. But with My Little Scythe, honestly, I don't know sales numbers or anything like that, but I wonder if it is big enough to kind of bring this idea in. I think, honestly, I just think that would be such a fun idea. Feudum. Feudum would be My Little Feudum. Oh, gosh. That gives me anxiety. All right. What have you been playing lately, Isaac?
So I want to mention this game that I played at Gen Con just because of how engaged everybody was when they were playing it. Have you guys heard of Word Slam?
I've heard of it. I actually want to check it out.
Oh my gosh, like it's so much fun. So two teams are trying to figure out, like, each one has a head, a person that knows this word. So both teams have this person that has like information on this word, but they can only give clues as quickly as they possibly can based on the decks that they have in front of them. So they're trying to go through the decks, look at these words, and trying to make people guess the other word. Like one of the ones that I was trying to do was like bowling, and I was like sport and ball and like something like, trying to get people to guess bowling before the other team guesses bowling.
Oh, okay.
So that's so everybody's just shouting out words, and you're trying to sometimes listen to what the other team is like guessing to try to understand like what kind of clues are we guessing, and whoever spouts out that word first is the winner. And it's just stupid fun. I feel like it's a more energetic version of Codenames, just because that timer is just so interesting. You can't just sit there and wait and then discuss and then press a word. You have to be throwing stuff out there all the time as they're looking through these words, and you're just like, oh man, I can't quite find the word that I need in order for them to guess this thing. And there's different decks that have words to guess that are different levels. So they have like stuff that's like, oh, this will be easy for you to put together, and they have this like level 5 deck that everybody yelled at me every time I grabbed a card from there. Because I was like, now we're gonna do this, we're gonna do it hard.
Oh yeah, we go all in.
And there's a timer too, so like there's only, I think it's somewhere in the range of 2 to 3 minutes, and that if neither team guesses it, then you just move on to another word.
Okay, this sounds amazing. How high does the player count go?
I think you can go like as many people as you want, because all you need is one team head, and then the teams can be as big as you want. Like we literally had people at Gen Con coming in and out of the teams as we were doing. So it's just like, come in and like, yeah, you guys can go ahead and join this team and that team. Let's just do it. And it was a lot of fun. It was very interesting.
I love a good party game. It's honestly it's easy to get people into it. One we've been playing a lot lately is Decrypto. I don't know if you've played that one yet. This actually sort of gives me some hints of that, but what Word Slam sounds like, it sounds like a more fun concept as well. If you've ever played Concept.
Oh yeah, I've played Concept. Yeah.
Where like you're kind of abstracting these thoughts to have them guess something else.
Word Slam, I would definitely say, is an improvement on that system for sure.
Is it out yet, or is this
I think
out soon?
I think it's been out for a year. That's like that's the thing that's just like, what? Like this exists. It's so much fun, and it's not even like, I can't believe like how like under the radar it's been. But that's kind of like the day and age we live in, right? Like there's just so much good stuff coming out, but there's only so much bandwidth that people have. Like it's like ranked 2,213, and I think if it would have come out before Codenames, it would have been like the biggest hit. So it's very interesting.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
That's actually, I don't know who puts that out. Who puts that out?
Yeah, it came out in 2016. Yeah,
Cosmos. Yep, Cosmos.
Oh, Cosmos.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, they're good.
I remember. I'm actually looking at the box. I've seen it in stores. It's got like a bunch of paint on it.
Is it in print still?
Probably. I bet you could find it.
I guess I could look at myself.
Yeah, you can find it for like 10. Like I don't know. I'm seeing it on the geek market for like $10.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I mean, you could probably pick up a copy. That's probably not going to be a problem.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. That sounds fun. Now I want to check it out. Here's the thing. I start going down a rabbit hole with party games because I try to get games that would be good for my group.
Yeah.
I'll back out. And so I've got kind of two groups going on. I have a Thursday night game group, which is more of like, we're just kind of here to play games. It's not really like a social, it's social, but it's more focusing on the game. But then on weekends when I have other friends over where it's just kind of hangout time, that's when those party games come out. And finding one that kind of hooks people and everyone has a good time, that's just kind of, I don't know, it's hard to find because other ones, some people would like and some people won't, but this one sounds really easy to get into and accessible.
There's one thing about party games too that I realized that happened after Cards of Cards Against Humanity came out is that there was like this shock factor that everybody loved and played a couple of different times, and it then kind of drops off because then you end up becoming numb to what the game's kind of hook was. While a game like Word Slam feels like a kind of close to Pictionary to a slight degree, where you just have these two groups of teams that are really trying to focus in and pay attention and not necessarily on their phones or whatever, and still I would think has like a better hook than something like a Cards Against Humanity or like what's your meme or whatever types of party games there are, which I know has been fairly prominent. And I wonder now if we're going to be seeing a resurgence of these types of party games as well. Good to think about.
Actually, yeah, that's interesting. I think a good gauge of a party game is the ratio of time played versus time on phone. Like if I can get my friends to not be on their phone, that's huge. I get so bent out of shape about this for some reason. Like if we're playing a social game, we're all hanging out, and I'm better now. But if like people are on their phone, I don't know why it irks me so much. I got to get over myself. I don't know. Am I the only one that bugs it? Does that bug anyone else?
No. I mean, it does when I'm trying to teach someone a game.
Yeah,
that's when it bugs me. Like I'm just like, dude. Like, I need you to pay attention to me right now.
Yeah,
like,
I know. I'm only going to say this once.
Like, it's just like, come on. Like, I understand, you need to check that Instagram post, but come on.
It can wait. No, I know. It's hard. Have you played a game we talked about recently, Sidereal Confluence? Is this a game you've played, Isaac? Or heard of?
I haven't.
Okay, so this game is just basically 2 hours of open trading and negotiation, and it's amazing because no one is on their phone because they can't be on the phone because you're like trading stuff. It's by WizKids. Check it out. It's pretty intense. It's absolutely amazing. But the reason it's amazing because people aren't on their phones because they can't be. They have to be paying attention, and it's fantastic. It's a ridiculous name, but it's just trading cubes. It's so good. But anyway, okay, that's awesome. Party games. Word Slam. Thanks for sharing that one. That was great. All right, enough talking about us. Isaac, we are here really just for you. That's what people want to hear about. There's a lot of exciting things, especially coming on the tail end of Gen Con here. A lot of exciting announcements from Plaid Hat. But what's something that kind of stood out to you from Gen Con? I know you're probably really heavy in the con scene, but with Gen Con, what's some experiences that kind of stood out to you?
That's interesting. Keyforge was definitely something I was paying attention to.
It's so interesting.
Yes, it's part of my parent company, I understand. But I mean, honestly, like it's just a very interesting concept. The fact that you can go and purchase something that is completely unique. It has a unique back. It has a unique feel. Nothing else in the world is going to be like that deck that you purchased is just a very interesting concept. I want to see how the market reacts to it. I want to see what that does for the possibility of design in the future. And with the recent Corey Canincia's recent announcement of a Discovery, or Discover lands unknown. Right?
Yeah. Yes, Discover.
Yeah.
I think it's Discovery too, but yeah.
Yeah. So with that also being a new model, so like we have card games and we have board games that are kind of being attached to this unique system is very interesting to me, and I want to see how that's received, and I want to see how people react to it because it's kind of opens up it's kind of how when Legacy games came out, it offers a new possibility towards design, which is very intriguing to me personally because I'm a designer.
No, it's so true.
So
it's the same thing. I'm super interested to see how people pick it up, and I was super interested in Keyforge, but then once they announced Discover, I don't know what we decided on.
I think it's
Discover.
I'm gonna get in trouble.
Yeah,
now.
I'm excited about that.
We all know what we're talking. We all know. If we say Discovery, we know what we're talking.
We called Keyforge Keystone in our last podcast, so you're doing just fine. That's really funny. So, of your own games at Gen Con, how do you feel the reception of Neon Gods was?
I think the reception was pretty good. I mean, you never really know until a game is for sale. So
Yeah.
because a game is not for sale, you don't know if like, oh, was everybody just being nice to me, or is it like actually moving units? Like it's, so
Yeah.
like when we have games at shows, I guess I can feel like that anxiety reduced by seeing the actual product move. But just from seeing demos, like every single one of our demo tables was full. Every single one of our demoers and the people that were playing, complimented on all of our games. So, it's a tough market out there right now, but I think like the reception in Neon Gods was, exactly what I was hoping for. So I can't be disappointed, but you just never really know until units start moving and it's really out there in the wild.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the striking elements of it, I remember it was announced maybe a few weeks before Gen Con on social media, was the visual style of it. Talk to us a bit about where the decision to go in that direction came from.
So when we were talking about the original concept of doing, this kind of new like 80s style vision of the future, gangs like fighting it out in this, city that's controlled by corporations, but kind of falling apart and all this kind of just grungy 80s futuristic kind of feeling. We wanted to find an artist that really kind of did something different from a lot of different board games that we had seen before. And we had been tossing around a lot of different people that were all very talented, all had very interesting styles. But when I came across Igor's work, Igor Wolski, that's the name of the artist who did Neon Gods. When I came across his work, I was just like, man, this guy is so different and kooky and interesting. And every time I looked at one of his pieces, I was just like, oh my gosh, there's something right there. And there's something right here going on. And there's something interesting going on here. So it's just like, this guy could do an amazing job. He could do an amazing job with just bringing out something completely different. And this world kind of needs that. It needs that touch. It needs that, just that kind of feeling. And when we told him about the project, he was enthusiastic about it. He jumped right on it. And when he came back with his first character, we were like, this is our guy. This is going to be amazing.
Man. That's awesome. Is this his first board game project?
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it is his first board game project. I love doing that. Like, I love finding artists and it's like, hey, board games are a thing. Try them out.
Seriously.
Yeah.
I mean, it's happened with that. That's how Scythe came to be.
Yeah.
That's how Feudum.
Yeah.
That's how Feudum was as well. The guy, Mark Swanson, saw that art and brought that in as well. That's super interesting. Okay, so the industry has changed between City of Remnants and Neon Gods. Okay. So do you feel like this is getting a better reception? In general, how did City of Remnants do in your eyes? And are you expecting kind of the same reception?
I mean, City of Remnants was critically acclaimed, which was, very nice for my first game. I'm glad that people, like reviewers received it well, but it just didn't resonate with a lot of players. It didn't sell particularly super well or anything like that, at least not to the expectations that Plaid Hat has started forming as a company. Our expectations keep outdoing each other. So by the time other games come around, if they don't hit what the last game did, it's just like it could have been a success at another company or when we were smaller, but not necessarily at the level we're at now. So like I am hopeful that Neon Gods will be able to be received better. The entire point of starting to work on that project was a reimagining of the City of Remnants design and allowing for just kind of streamlining, trying to bring it up to where we are as a industry right now, allowing people to still have a lot of the same things that they loved and the mechanics that they loved in City of Remnants, but also giving it to them in a much more easy to handle way, in a way that they're going to be able to be more focused, but still have the feeling of, drafting different characters into their decks, making their decks very unique and feel different from other players, and also allowing them to take over different locations and kind of feel like a gang that's expanding and controlling its territory.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I think that we accomplished that. It's definitely you're definitely not paying attention to so many things that were going on. It's kind of more focused. For sure. And it also we were also able to approach, like you were mentioning with the art, we were able to approach the game in a much more beautiful way. Because with the first game, you know, not to say anything negative about the artist, but you know, we just we had certain budgets, we had certain constraints back then, and we had a certain, you know, we were still figuring out our style and what the kind of thing that we wanted to represent.
Well, I mean, back then it fit with all the other games though in Plaid Hat's offerings, because is it the same artist that did a Dungeon Run as well?
A Dungeon Run and Summoner Wars as well.
Yeah,
he even did some stuff for us on BioShock, and he's done some amazing stuff. I mean, he won awards for Mice and Mystics as well.
Yeah, sure, Mice and Mystics.
Yeah, because City of Remnants, that holds a special place in my heart. I played it when I was like early on in the hobby, and I was in a small duplex. It was just my wife and I before we had kids, and I had some friends over, and it was just like those games that just brought these different mechanisms together in such a beautiful way that everyone I was playing with back then absolutely loved it. I had some friends who went and bought it. I tried to spread the love. I tried.
Yeah, and I still have people coming up to me and telling me how much they love that game. Some people telling me that it's their favorite game. So like that's what I do appreciate about everything that I have worked on. It's been able to resonate with someone, whether or not it's sold super well or it didn't. It has always been able to capture its audience, intrigue them, and that message always gets back to me and makes me have all the warm fuzzies and feel good about it. So it's very nice to know that the things that I work on are resonating with people. And
that's awesome.
I think that Neon Gods will find its audience. I think it will hopefully please a lot of people that did play City of Remnants and enjoyed it, and also expand the amount of people that didn't necessarily give it a try, either because it was too complex or it wasn't the style that they liked or things like that, and give it another try and see if it's something that they are enjoying. Because it's definitely something that's made specifically for this type of time period that we're in, a little bit different.
It makes sense. It made the hotness, right, from Gen Con. So, I mean, it'll definitely get some awareness from there. That's awesome. I'm excited. I know I'm excited to play it just to kind of see the evolution.
I do have a question about Neon Gods. I know that I think there's one video out there that someone interviewed Colby about the game. It's like a 3-minute video out there on YouTube. Yeah. So going back, I actually have recently played City of Remnants out of
I saw your tweets. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Well, it's really strange too, because like I messaged you because I was out board game hunting and I found this game, City of Remnants, and I looked and saw that your name was on it. And I had no idea that you'd made this game. It was your first game. So I picked it up, and sure enough, then Neon Gods literally the next day had been announced.
Yeah.
So
I found that so funny.
Yeah. So in the games, like, you have so many mechanisms, right? And what's interesting is that when I played it with people, you know, you have your hand management, you have your city building, you have your resource management, you have your area control, you have your auctioning. Like, there is a lot of mechanics that single games just focus on one. You throw a lot at the player, but what I found really interesting is that players didn't feel like one overdid the other. Like, everything kind of fit into its nice place, which I think is why I think reviewers and why people come out of it liking it. Like, there is a lot to it, but that I think it speaks towards the balance of what you're able to do, which is make every single mechanic, I think, feel in its own, like, didn't ever go past what it was supposed to do. So, like, was that something that you had strived in development to say, this is what I want to have happen? Or was it just like, you really like these things that you had seen in board games and really wanted to try to incorporate as much as possible, and things kind of evolved from there to the point where it is what it is today?
City of Remnants was certainly kind of my love letter to what I loved about board games. Yeah. You know, it was definitely like, oh, I love this auctioning mechanic, and I love this ability to do deck building, and I love being able to draft these different characters and take area control and things like that. And I just, when I thought about all of those mechanics kind of melding into one, it just came into this like, oh, it'd be really cool if we all had our own little gang and we were trying to build up this kind of area and we were trying to take these things over. And it just, each mechanic, like you said, lended to the experience and just made sense in the theme. And I think that that's how I approach all of my designs. If the mechanic is a really good mechanic, but it doesn't make sense in the theme, I avoid it completely. But if it is able to meld, if it is able to work together, I want it in there. I want it to be able to represent, what I'm trying to accomplish with the theme and what the characters and the story is trying to tell. Because I don't necessarily, through my games, always get to explore a narrative aspect or like essentially take you through a specific campaign, but I try through the things that you are actually doing, showing you that these characters have a life to them. So yeah, it was something that I definitely did on purpose, but it also just kind of came out of the world that I was trying to build.
Sure. Absolutely.
That's awesome. Okay, so did you feel that Neon Gods in the process of developing it pushed you in any sort of way? Like helped you grow as a developer?
Yeah, I think it showed me that like I can do a lot more with less. And that's something that I've actually been learning with Starship Samurai. I felt the same way. It's kind of my new process, seeing all these games that are out there nowadays that, take very simple mechanics, but provide just a plethora of opportunities with them. Is something that I'm still trying to put into my designs, because I notice how much people just gravitate towards those designs, and they also are able to teach them easily to their friends and spread the love of the game. And ultimately, that's the entire point of gaming, is this social aspect, to be able to get other people together, get engaged with them. And the more that we have less walls and barriers in between getting you from understanding nothing about the game to understanding as much as you possibly can about the game, is the goal. Like, rules are always going to be the biggest hurdle in gaming, and we have to I'm personally on a journey to strive to eliminate as much as possible from that process of not knowing to knowing. So Neon Gods is definitely easier to learn than City of Remnants was, and Starship Samurai is probably one of the easiest games I've ever developed to learn as well. And, I want to keep doing that so people can get to the fun.
Yeah. So this is exactly why I loved Starship Samurai, because that exactly what you're talking about. And I find the trends in my hobby going towards that, where it's easy to just put it on the table and teach and play and to get into. And the main takeaway I got from Starship Samurai was, it was like the elements of games like Rising Sun, but just like the fun elements pared down to Starship Samurai, and that made me so excited, and I loved that aspect of it. Because don't get me wrong, I love Rising Sun, but there you're playing a 3-hour game, and kind of the most exciting parts about that was the battling and kind of gearing up towards that. Where with Starship Samurai, it's just that, but pared down, and you're focusing more on the fun elements of it. So that's awesome to hear that that's kind of been a goal of yours, and I think that's a goal with a lot of people I'm seeing now, just with games in general. Of course, we still get the super heavy games, which are great for what they are.
I think there's always going to be room for both types of games, but my new kind of mantra and what I want to do is engage as many new people as possible into our industry, because we are growing, but we are also like in a way kind of shoving a lot into the whales of our industry. Like, people, it's like, hey, you love games, buy more. And I think that we need to do a better job of, hey, like, there's still millions upon millions of people that don't know anything about this. I run into people every day that I tell them what I do, and they have no idea. The only way that I can connect the dots is to tell them about Monopoly, and that is something that I think our industry can definitely strive to do, and I think a lot of people are. It's not like we aren't. But yeah, it's a really fun hobby, and I want to expand it as much as possible. And if I can make a game that is able to do that, even in a small way, I want to be able to. That's why when you told me your story about your friends coming over for Starship Samurai, and he had not come over anymore, or he had not come over before that much, that's exactly what I was hoping for. And that's, I want to engage people that may have not thought this, I've never really tried games, or I sat down, it was too complicated. I want them to sit down and feel like, oh, I get this. I understand what's going on. I understand how everything's connecting. And that's what I'm hoping for, as many people as possible. And also just to also involve people of different backgrounds. There's a lot of women that don't necessarily get to play games as much. There's a lot of people of color that don't get access to games, and bringing down price points, bringing down the barriers to entry, anything that we can do to do that is important to me. Honestly.
Oh, totally. Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so let's say that you have a new game coming out and you put your heart and soul into it, a game like Starship Samurai, and criticism starts coming in, okay? And that's going to happen with any game, right? People are going to be passionate about their opinions. What's your process of kind of taking that criticism, weeding out what you think is valid or whatnot? What do you do personally to kind of cope with all that?
What I learned from my very first game, City of Remnants, is that no matter what you do, people are going to have an opinion that may not jive exactly the way that you were hoping.
Yeah.
I sometimes go down that rabbit hole of looking at comments, seeing responses, looking at every review that comes out, or seeing reviews that weren't necessarily positive. Sometimes I don't have the time, honestly, to do that. But most of the times when I do have the time, I do. And I'm not trying to beat myself up over anything. I'm trying to just learn from the experience. There's going to be comments out there that are constructive, that are valid. One of the things that people have said about Starship Samurai is not having the basis to color code the thing. And that's something we had thought about. We decided to go against because of we didn't want to price the game at a certain point, but it looks like it would have been better to price the game higher and not had that comment come out. So that's something we definitely learned from that, and it's hopefully a solution that we can come up with for the future. But there's something you're going to learn from every game that's released. Totally. And what I always tell people in the process of playtesting and just, anytime before a game is released, I always tell people, be 100% honest with me. Tell me what you would post online about this, because I can change it now. I can't do anything once it's out there. It's not a video game. I can't release a code update. Yeah. I can't do any of that. It's gonna be done. It's the product. It's finished.
Yeah, so that's so true.
So, I learn an incredible amount from that process, but some of it is not constructive. Some of it is just an opinion. Some of it is just, it's just not their cup of tea. And that's okay. Not every game is going to fit every player. That is never going to be the case. It doesn't matter what game you have. There's going to be someone that does not enjoy it. But
that's a hard lesson to learn, though.
No,
it really is.
Well, the thing is that it's either you put it out there and someone will enjoy it, or you don't put it out there and then no one will ever experience it at all. My entire thing is that even on the bad reviews, even on the bad comments, I am always thankful for them, because at least they took the time to try it out. At least they were interested enough to give it their time. And in the age that we live in, there is so much stuff that is competing for a human being's time.
Oh yeah.
So to allow that into your life means I made a change in that person's life in a small way. I hope that it's always positive. Sometimes, it may just not be their cup of tea, and that's okay.
So we solved the whole base thing in Starship Samurai issue. You take Sagrada dice because they're tiny and the same colors. You saw that? Yeah.
I saw that
totally
online.
Worked. Yeah. So, it makes sense. I think that's some good advice. Is feedback is good as long as you can take it and understand what is actually constructive and what's not. I love that. That's great.
I'm gonna jump back to Neon Gods, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So is the city building mechanic still present? Like you have all the different types of buildings and their size, and you flip them over, and you have each building producing, or because I didn't see much of that. As far as how that works.
You are building structures,
Okay.
but there's a limited amount of structures that kind of fall into every aspect of what you could do in the old game. It's just now you can combine them. So
Okay.
I can build a factory on the same space that I build a watchtower, on the same space that I build a monument. So that allows me now in that same space. I have defense, I have production, and I have additional victory points.
Okay.
So you can go ahead and combo those things in specific ways, but now there's small tokens. They're not these big hulking things that you're flipping over and you're doing and having to read on the board, which makes the board completely understandable without anything outside of numbers as far as text.
Gotcha.
So it's just like now I can look across and I don't have to read what my opponent's structure does or know what it is before I even invade it or do anything. I can look across and see, oh, he has this, and this. I know exactly what's going on there.
Yeah.
And that was something that we really wanted to enforce, because in the original City of Remnants, people were confused by what the buildings did. People were also having trouble reading the actual text because you'd be putting units on there. Yes, we had the cards out, but then the cards are over there. They're facing the wrong direction. And, just being able to decipher what is going on at a glance is very valuable, and it saves a lot of time, especially in these games that kind of are meatier. They take a little bit more time to play.
Gotcha. Are the miniatures about the same size as the one in City of Remnants?
No, they're a little bigger. I want to
They're a little bigger.
Yeah, I want to make sure of that.
Well,
they're
so it's
chunkier,
interesting.
they're nicer.
Yeah, so the miniatures in City of Remnants 2012 are tinier than I would have thought. Not that that was a bad thing, because they actually still look pretty cool. They all are very much like you can tell what they are.
Chad, our sculptor, did an amazing job making such tiny miniatures discernible. Like, he is a very talented human being. But yeah, I definitely wanted them to be bigger. I wanted them to be, if we're going to have these cool color schemes with the neon and the city and all this kind of stuff, I wanted them to stand out and be a focal point. And the way they turned out, I was super happy with.
Can you talk any about combat?
Yeah. So combat is kind of like we reversed the way the units and the cards ended up working. So in the original City of Remnants, dice were attached to every unit that you have on the board. So you got one die for every unit that you have on the board, and then your cards would give you numbers to play those. So now we reversed it. Cards actually give you the dice to play with, and the units just out there that give you the numbers. So that way, every time you're invading, you have an understanding of like, okay, I know what he has on the board, but I don't know what's on those cards. So I don't know what dice is going to be bringing out. And I don't know by playing is like, am I going to be able to do this? I know that I'm going to play this die. It's more powerful, but it may not happen. Like, it may not happen for me, which still having the combination of numbers and random numbers with the dice is always kind of a fun aspect, because it allows you to have that random chance, even if you are the underdog, to win that game. And that's always a point in which there's definitely a huge reaction at the table. There's emotion. There's people paying attention to that. And it's definitely a concept that we still wanted to keep in. We just wanted it a little bit more measured. And it also allowed people to select their characters into their decks a lot easier without having, oh man, there's that 5 character. Everybody's going to go after him. And then no one's going to pay attention to that too. Now I'm paying attention more to the ability and less to their combat value. Even though their combat value is still something that's important to me, it's not necessarily guaranteed that they're going to give me something that's super high.
Yeah, gotcha. And is it still like is the auctioning system because it sounds like instead you had like one of 6 actions that you could choose from. Now, is it more like I saw it was definitely much more like this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. When you recruit a gang member, do you still have that auctioning process as well too?
You don't have the auctioning process, and this is one of the things that I did try to keep throughout the process of demoing. The issue is that there would be so many moments in City of Remnants in which the auctioning process would slow down the game. It would beat up on players that just didn't have money at certain moments.
Yep.
And what ended up being a better solution and still kind of worked very similarly is just having I forget what the actual terminology is, but just having a buying system in which, hey, this guy's worth 0 right now, this guy's worth 1, this guy's worth 3, this one's worth 5, and then it all tiers down
Shifts
as
down.
people buy. So that ended up making things faster, and I think that for the experience that we were trying to go for, making things quicker, moving forward with your turns, because in City of Remnants, that you can take a turn and it can last 5-7 minutes because you have so many combos of things that are going on. And what I was trying to make sure is that the turns are lasting more like 2 minutes, at most, moving forward, moving quickly.
Yeah, yep. So that's what we noticed as well, too, is that there are some decks where it's just like draw a card, get money, draw a card, get money, draw a card, get money. And there was 3 of them you could hit, and I think your influence size was 4 or something like that. So there's very much times where with how small your deck was, you were almost literally cycling through that deck, for your turn, which is fun for that player. But as you mentioned as well, too, those player times do get long. So yet when I saw that whole streamlining system, as you had made mention to, it definitely much more seemed like the 2.0 version of that game, which is really awesome to hear. I'm really excited, as definitely the art drew me in, and now having played City of Remnants and playing it with other people and telling them about what this next game and offering could be, all of them as well were excited. Very much everyone was still very interested in playing City of Remnants, and so I would definitely say that Neon Gods in my possession would probably override it. But
I think at the point at where Neon Gods is, I think they will be able to still be very interesting separate games.
Sure.
It's kind of going to be, it's not going to be quite a My Little Scythe to Scythe ratio for sure. It's definitely, Neon Gods is still definitely a meaty game. It still will take you about 90 to 120 minutes. It's going to be a bigger night, but bigger part of your night, but it won't have all of these, City Remnants had the interesting aspect of having so many different mechanics all working around at once. Neon Gods is far more focused, and I think it's just going to be on the preference of what the players are feeling for in that moment or what they're looking for out of their game.
Sure.
Which means that next year is My Little Neon Gods, right?
We'll see.
We'll see. My Little City of Remnants. So I kind of want to open it up a little bit more away from City of Remnants and kind of going out into the hobby in itself a bit more. So I want to talk about when you first came on board, have City of Remnants under your belt, to today with the pending release of Neon Gods and Starship Samurai. How do you feel the hobby board game landscape has changed from when you first came on board to today? What are some of the primary things you're now reflecting back being wow, this is something that has been prominently, I don't know, made pushed to the frontier, or is it the growth? Is it the mechanics? I mean, of course, probably I think the barrier of entry has been gradually getting easier and easier and easier. Has there been anything else that's come to mind?
I think you touched on most everything. The thing that comes to mind the most is seeing the amount of diversity that is entering the industry right now. Not only on the aspect of the actual consumer, but also in the people that are developing product and the people that are talking about it. Content creators are the things that I'm most excited about seeing, actually. So it's you guys are part of this. The amount of people that are talking about the industry has exploded, and I am very, very, very happy about that, because you guys are the ones that are doing the work to excite people and evangelize this industry outside of where we're at, because there's so many people that came up to us when we had the podcast going on, that found out about board games or started getting into board games by listening to us, by listening us talk about the industry, by listening us talk about our process and things like that. And I know that there are listeners of yours, there are listeners of many of the people that are starting their own podcast or starting their own YouTube channels and things like that have never touched this industry before, have never been interested in it before, but now are starting to find out about it through these people. And because we're getting such a large amount of young, energetic, diverse, energy involved, we're just going to be attracting that as far as clients and people that haven't tried it out before. And what I also like seeing is that, just like we were talking about, there is this kind of push for, games that are kind of somewhere in between what we considered entry level and somewhere in between we received as like hard Euros or hard hobby games, that are really resonating with people and allowing people just like, hey, try this out. You're gonna love it. You're gonna enjoy it, and it's amazing. We're in an amazing time. It's so interesting to see the amount of stuff that is being pushed out there, the things that people are doing. The art in board games has definitely upped its quality.
Oh yeah.
In the last
definitely.
5 years, for sure. Like, there were so many games with just a farmer and his pitchfork.
Yeah.
Just standing in front of that box under a setting sun, waiting for everybody to die.
Yeah.
but
that's just rings so true.
But
Wow.
now there's just so much life. There's so much interesting worlds that are being explored. There's so many interesting stories that are being explored. Stories are also something big that it's exploded since the beginning of when I've come into the industry until now. Like, people are exploring so many different ways to tell stories, to see board games as a different form of art, to be able to explore not only things that make people happy, but things that can make people think. It's an exciting time. It's also a hard time because it's like, oh, well, everybody's upping their game. So, we gotta up our game. We got to think about more things. And, as a personal process, the more that you kind of like get into your own head and focus and you're just sitting there and designing, the less that you're paying attention to the industry, the less that you're playing. So I am learning to also remind myself, like, hey, I need to get out there. I need to get out there and be with the people and play and enjoy what is going on in the industry too. And like, Origins was a great opportunity for me to do that when I met you, Ryan. So
yeah,
it's an exciting time. Everything's been enhanced. Everything.
Which is overwhelming at times too.
Oh yeah.
I think. Like, completely overwhelming. Okay, so where do you see it going in the next 5 years? Both the industry as a whole and maybe you as a designer. What's in store for you?
Oh man. That is an interesting question. I am just not even just in design, not just in my own career, but in my own life as a life lesson. I'm trying to learn to live in the now. It's a very difficult thing for me because I'm always a person that's kind of in the past or in the future. I'm not right here. Yeah. I'm not right here. Yeah. So I probably would have had something to tell you a few months ago, like, oh, this is where I'm thinking and blah, blah, blah. But right now I'm trying to just focus on what I can do right now. And, 5 years from now, what I hope is that I'm still enjoying this to the best of my ability. I'm still exploring new things that excite me and that scare me and that allow me to share more of myself with the people that are paying attention, And I think that if I continue on that path, that it will lead to some very amazing and wonderful things. What that exactly looks like, I'm not so sure yet, because I'm trying to be here a little bit more.
Yeah, totally. Okay. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, okay. Yeah, I'm done.
I was going to say, actually, what you said something was very interesting about things kind of scaring you in a good way. as you start a design for a game, what's kind of the most scary aspect of it to you?
One is like, has anybody else done this before? That's harder and harder to figure out.
Oh yeah.
In the way that things are going right now, like, because there's so many games out there that, like, hey, I just told you guys about Word Slam, didn't know it was a thing, and it was released apparently in 2016. So it's just like, things like that. You don't want to waste your time on something that's already been done before, already received. Luckily, there are, as many ideas that are out there. There are so many more ideas that haven't been done. So that's a good thing. What scares me too is that, like, I want to make sure that I'm giving the time and the love that a game deserves, and really putting it through its training courses before it's out there. I think that, everything with the way that competition is out there nowadays, you really have to do your diligence and your homework. And also make sure that you're putting it in front of the right people that are going to help you guide the game to the right path. And as far as, like, things that are scary, I think there's always moments where, I'm not the best writer. I'm not the best necessarily getting all of my thoughts out onto paper as far when it comes to storytelling. Those are things that I'm trying to explore right now. I'm working on a game right now that allows me to do that a little bit more. And I want to be able to explore that more. So that is scary for me, because I do have dyslexia. That is difficult for me to always put that out there in the most clear way. And editing is probably the thing that's the worst. That is the thing that scares you the worst, because you always
pushes you the most.
Like, oh man, it's something I'm not good at, and I know that it, like, you always, oh man, I'm gonna miss something. There's something that's gonna, like, be missed. And like I said, once a game is out there, it's out there. You can't change it. You can't stop a 10,000 print run from hitting the shelves.
Arboretum,
like, no, like, this is wrong. So, and
Arboretum
expansion,
and those mistakes have happened before. Those mistakes have happened before. But trying to make sure those things don't happen again. So there's a lot of scary aspects. But we with experience, and the team that we've been able to have here at Plaid Hat Games, we push through them, and we cheer each other on, and we try to work on them and do our best.
That's awesome. It sounds like that fear is being channeled in a good way then.
Yeah.
Or like helping you develop to your best potential, which is great. Okay, so in that same vein, kind of, how are you separating yourself from other designers? What are you trying to do to kind of make yourself different from other designers?
I think I honestly don't put that much thought into that. Only because I don't see myself as so special or unique.
but you are in my heart.
Oh, thank you. One of the things that I think that I bring to the table that a lot of other people can't, or at least a lot of other people didn't, when I was first coming into the industry, was the fact that I'm a, gay person of color. That is something, bringing diversity, bringing different stories that a lot of people don't necessarily see in the industry to the forefront. Dead of Winter was definitely my first foray into that, and making sure that, there's characters can have these types of stories too. They can have this type of interaction too. These people can live in the same town together. It's not crazy.
They can fight zombies together.
Yes, exactly. And it's just, it's one of those things that you really can't truly understand what it is unless the people behind those stories are actually telling them.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I struggle with right now, because, there's a lot of voices out there that want to, champion diversity and be out there, but at the same time too, we have to push up the people that are actually diverse, having these conversations, and pushing their voices out there and putting more representation. I'm lucky. I'm one of the lucky few in the industry that has the career that I have, being a gay person of color. Like I personally don't know that many other people that are. And I'm just starting to meet some other people in the industry that way as well, and that's a relatively new thing, and that's amazing, and I'm glad that's happening. But I want to see more of that, and I hope that I can do my best to be representative of that. But it's also like not everything I am. It's not everything that I'm going to be able to tell, and it's not the only thing I want to focus on. I want to make my games fun first and foremost.
Now, is it easier to kind of tell that story these days? Is it easier? Is it harder?
I think it's definitely easier. It's getting easier for sure, but it's also in the time period that we're in. It definitely has a lot more, not necessarily scrutiny, but a lot more expectations on it. And unfortunately, not every game can be everything for everybody. That's just not the reality that we live in. No form of entertainment can fulfill everybody's story, because we have so many stories in this world. And not every game can teach every lesson or allow for, certain bridges to be crossed or things like that. So it's just a difficult thing. Like anytime you put something out there, someone else is going to feel excluded, and I think that we also have to do a good job of not only, saying that we need to champion these voices, but we have to understand too that like we can also, help other people that we can't necessarily tell those stories for, bring up other people that can tell those stories, so it's just like, okay, I didn't do this in my thing because that's not my experience, but let me go ahead and tell you who did and who can, and educating ourselves and bringing each other together in that way too.
No, that's awesome. Beautiful. So is there advice you could give for not necessarily board game designers, but actually the consumers, us who just play the games? Any advice you have on your end for ways that we can do that we can help promote that idea?
I think the best thing that consumers can do is to champion games from that tell a diverse story, or that just have a different spin to it, or have a diverse set of characters. You guys have so much power with your dollars in this world. You have so much power to say, you know what, this game, it would have, and you can also reach out to publishers and say, this game had all the things that I wanted except a diverse set of characters or a good female representation or these kinds of things. And I would have purchased this game if it wasn't for that reason. Because letting a publisher know in a civil and like easy way, I'm always a champion for, hey, you don't have to put everything up on social media. You can just send an email. Sometimes that's really the best way to really change minds and hearts, because in social media, everybody gets so reactive. Even though, like, sometimes people do need to be called out, and sometimes the only way to do that is publicly. But, supporting projects that have that kind of representation is a very good way. The other way is just teach games to as many people as you feel comfortable teaching games to. Like, one of the biggest things that I have noticed in people when I started in the industry, and in myself even, is that like one of the things that people say a lot is like, she won't like this game because she's a girl.
Oh,
you
really?
know?
No.
Oh yeah, this happens all the time, and that is a wall that you are building for another person without even consent or talking to them about it. A lot of people do that. And it's like, don't build these walls around these things that are supposed to be community driven, that are fun, bring people together. Don't build these walls that are just going to separate you from enjoying something with someone else just because you have a preconceived notion of who that person is. And that is something that I will definitely say, as a consumer, you guys have the power to spread the love. spread the love.
I love it.
You know?
Spread the love, guys.
Yeah.
I love it.
I also want to make mention too, in that same like kind of diversity thing, and I've been present to this a lot on Twitter, that there has been, specifically within content creators that are females, have been getting a lot of negative feedback from people, specifically men, that have been very it's been very hurtful, damaging, disrespectful to those specific people. They are, they're women that are championing this content and trying to, again, spread that love. And to have these people spreading the hate as far as like, what these, what just these content creators are trying to do has been, I think a lot has been on my feed a lot recently, and has brought a lot of attention to my side as far as being conscious about, as what's going on. It's something that in Hollywood we had all these big mogul people being called out on for sexual harassment and obviously treating women very badly, and now we are starting to see that in our hobby, and I think it's disgraceful. I think it's awful, and I really hope that we still continue to side with women that are being treated this way, and let these people know that it's not tolerated, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that the most important thing that us as men can do is to support women that are telling these stories, believe them, and also defend them when they're having these issues. These are not our stories to tell, but we need to be able to allow the space for them to be told, and to push for equality in any way that we possibly can. Mm-hmm. It's so, and this is the thing. This is the hardest thing about this, is that it's not just a problem with our industry. It's a problem with everywhere. Our culture. It's a world.
Everywhere.
It's
exactly.
like, and that's what's very difficult. But at least my hope is that by having more communication about it, by having people realize that it is a problem, that it is something that needs to be fixed, that we can go ahead and get to a better place. It's going to take time, and it's not going to be easy, but it can be better, and it should.
I feel like, on a positive note, though, that it is. People are more aware of it now more than ever, and I think that's what promotes that change, and I think that's a positive aspect of it. But I mean, we do get those faceless cowards on social media that can hide behind that shield, and they'll do whatever they do, right? And that's but as we become more aware of that, we can, like you said, become defenders and things like that. I think that's beautiful. Well, this I don't know. I actually had other questions about games, but I think this is a beautiful note to kind of end this discussion on. Do you have any other questions on your end, Ryan?
No. I mean, really, no. I do really think that was a great kind of way to end this episode. I mean, we talked a lot about Neon Gods, which I'm again really excited for. We talked a lot about, again, teaching games, spreading love, championing good content, and I can't think of a better way, really, to move forward from that. Really, I don't know. That seemed very conclusive. I don't know. I'm very.
It's true.
Really
it's
great.
true.
I feel really good.
This has been just a pleasure, Isaac. You are just a charming individual, and it's been great being able to talk to you and get in your mind with the process on your end and everything like that. It's just a big thank you from our end.
Oh, no. Thank you guys for having me on. I'll do this anytime you guys want me. Just let me know.
Okay, same time next week? Just kidding.
Rolling triple. Rolling triples.
Rolling triples. No, it's funny. A couple weeks ago, as we started talking about this, I realized that I own like 80% of the games that you made. I think I don't own Video Game High School.
That's fine. There was only a small amount of those printed.
Okay. And then Dead of Winter, Flick 'em Up. I have Flick 'em Up and I have Dead of Winter, but I don't have the marriage of the two. Which honestly, what that is, that just represents like the marriage of your parent company when all that kind of went down. It's like, this is the love child of when all of that came out.
Yes.
And it's just like the quintessential example of that. So any other words of wisdom that you want to share Isaac, on your end?
Oh man, just love each other, people. Like, come on.
Love each other, people. Come on.
Just play
That's deep.
play more board games and love each other because we need it. Like the world needs it right now. Just
Yes,
just
we do.
So true.
enjoy each other and spend more time away from your phone and hopefully playing a board game that makes you laugh and have a good time.
I love it. Where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Isaac's Ashes, and you can also just email me at isaac@plaidhatgames.com.
Cool. Okay, actually, about that, did you make that handle when Ashes came out?
Yes, I might change it in the future.
Ooh.
Who
Hey.
knows? It might be time.
I mean, Ashes is a great game.
Thank
I mean,
you.
it's not a
Yes.
bad handle.
I mean, it's still coming out, so
yeah, it's still out.
relevant.
Seriously, do you have influence on all the decks that are coming out? Is that all you, or has it kind of
actually,
been handed
no.
off to
Like
other developers?
I've allowed for new designers to come in. We've had one of my lead play testers on that, Robert Klotz, was the one who designed, I believe, both of the most recent decks. And then we also have our lead playtester, Nick, who's also been doing some deck design too. And they are just amazing people, and they've know more about the game than I do at this point. So,
Oh my gosh.
oh my
That's
gosh. They just have the brains for it. It's funny. I design so much from emotional and like a just throwing my heart on paper and trying to see if all these crazy things work out. And sometimes I need people in my life that just have that very analytical, the numbers based kind of mind. And when we meld, I love those people so much because they help me see things in a very different way. But I also push them to make sure, no, the love still has to be there, and the passion, and the emotion, and the drama, and all that stuff. So I always think, and with Ashes specifically, like having them on my team has been amazing because they are just a good meld of all of that, and
That's cool.
really help out with that.
Anyway, that's Isaac Ashes on Twitter. I was at the Gamer Curator, but I'm kind of retiring that end of my content production, focusing more on this podcast. I used to make videos anyway. Actually, I made a video about Starship Samurai for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, but I'm gonna be primarily on at Roll Doubles for this podcast, so I'm gonna start pumping things out for that. And Ryan, where do people find you?
They find me at Twitter at Ryguy314, RyGuyPie, which actually is a better Twitter handle. I just used it in high school. I didn't think about it. I wasn't that clever in high school, so I was like, Ryguy.
You weren't developing your brand from high school.
No, I was not. No,
it was like Bistro, the designer of Dungeon Run, was telling me the funniest thing when he was trying to get his daughter into preschool. Like, it's like, what is her brand gonna be? And I was like, what the hell are they talking about? Like, already? Like, geez.
Oh my gosh.
no.
Oh, that's so funny.
Well,
Oh my
no,
gosh.
okay, so I played a lot of Counter-Strike, and you had to have a really cool nickname when you played Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
So, actually, college is where people started calling me Ryguy, and then I just added the 314 on it just because for some reason, people kind of had like their birth date after it, and I'm like, why do you put your birth date? I thought it was like a whole privacy thing, so I was like, what's my favorite number? And I was like, well, I like pi because it's kind of a neat number, so it's like Ryguy 314, and then it turned out to be Ryguy Pi, which just kind of flew nicely, but I just now do the Ryguy 314. In high school, though, my nickname was Devs, DEVS, which was the initials for Die Year von Satan, which was a Tool song from Anima.
Oh yeah, it's a great album.
So everyone used to call me Devs, and then it turned into Devsinator after the Terminator, and so now Devsinator was kind of floating around there. But I have retired that as far as like, I just use Ryguy. It just makes so much more sense. So there was kind of a brand that I had built, is what I'm trying to say. However, as I growed and aged, I just ended up just being like, hey, it's just my name, Ryguy Pie.
Okay, I've got some quick shot questions for you for people as a reward for listening this long. Britney Spears or Madonna?
Oh, this is for me.
Yes, Isaac. Sorry, this is for you, Isaac. I don't care what Ryan thinks.
Britney Spears? I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's
Madonna.
Right
I would say Madonna.
NSYNC or Backstreet Boys?
NSYNC.
I'm sorry. It's gonna be Backstreet Boys.
Oh,
I had a
Well, when did you
crush on.
graduate high
I had a
school,
crush
Isaac?
on one of them.
I don't doubt that.
I was definitely in sync. I'm just answering
I
these
was-
questions, by the way. I don't care.
No, that's true. I was also
Okay.
in sync. Let's see. When did you graduate high school, Isaac?
2005.
Okay, so I was 02, and that's when Celebrity came out, which was just an amazing album. So I'm definitely an NSYNC guy, but I get the Backstreet Boys. I get it. Let's see. Star Wars or Star Trek?
This is hard.
I know in my.
Oh my gosh. Star Trek. I'm sorry. Picard just has taught me so much about life.
Yep.
He's coming back. He's coming back.
Yeah, I heard. I still haven't seen the
Yeah.
new series yet. I'm so bad. But I need to just buy it. I don't think it's on any of
know.
the streaming services. That's why I haven't seen it.
Okay.
So
well, awesome.
hang on.
Oh, sorry.
I'm Star Trek, and I'm very specifically. There's one Star Trek episode or series that holds my heart, which is very controversial. Star Trek Voyager.
Really?
I love Star Trek Voyager. I mean,
I still
TNG
should
comes
try
at
it.
TNG comes a very close second, but Star Trek Voyager was like what I grew up with.
Yes,
Like,
I just-
can't even remember what's her name. Oh no! I can't. It can't be. It can't
Some
be.
fan.
It's the, no, yeah, I know, right?
he's a fan like
um,
me who barely remembers information.
I know.
I love it so much. What were their names? I have no
What were the-
idea.
Well, the Doctor was really cool. Neelix. I'm just the redhead. The captain. What's her name? Oh no! Anyways, move on.
Wait,
please.
was she?
That
She's
was
in
not-
Orange is the New Black, right?
Yes. Yep.
Oh, I know who you're talking about, but I don't.
Yeah,
remember
you
her
know
name
what I'm
from
talking.
Voyager.
Right. As soon as I watch it, I'll kind of kick myself. Please move on. Last question.
I'm a Star Wars guy. That's just I was a big TNG fan growing up, but Star Wars just will always hold a special place in my heart.
I mean, they're both great. Like, I mean,
I
it's
know,
just like
that's
we
true.
don't have to make them war against each other. We can just love them both.
Okay, fine. All right. Well, thank you so much. This has just been wonderful. There's tons of other questions we could talk about, but I think we did great. So I appreciate the time so much.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Domo arigato gozaimasu.
Thank you guys.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks so much for listening. Music intro is Sivu Play by Fantastic Plastic Machine, and music bumpers were created by myself using Apple Loops and GarageBand for iOS. Join us next time as we continue to wipe up our drool on another exciting episode of Rolling Doubles Podcast.
Little